Aloha, everybody. I'm Jamal.
And I'm Brandon, and this is The Way We Ball.
The voice of Houston soccer, Glenn Davis's birthday. Happy birthday to one of our inspirations, I guess it's safe to say, and the guy keeping Houston soccer on the airwaves for the last decade or so. Happy birthday to our GOAT, Glenn Davis.
So I'm going to do a very quick ball in, ball out for you. Being excited for your birthday. You ball in, ball out.
Oh, man, I am ball out. I was excited until I hit my 30s. Now it's just, it keeps adding on. It's like you just like the next day you're like, wait, I'm this old, and it's a scary thought. So I am ball out on celebrating birthdays, but I'm ball in on celebrating other people's birthdays, especially when it's the GOAT Glenn. So again, happy birthday, Glenn. What's your thoughts on that?
So that's so funny because that's exactly my opinion as well. Ball out on my birthday, not like one of those like staunchy people that it's like, ooh, I don't like like I just don't really care for my birthday. It's 4 days from Christmas, so most people are busy anyway. So my birthday is swept under the rug anyway. Perfect, exactly how I like it. But I am ball in on being like stoked for other people's birthdays. And if they want to have a party, I'm going to be up for it. You know what I mean? So happy birthday, Glenn. I know he's a huge Rolling Stone fan and he went out to the concert that they had at NRG. So hopefully that was a early birthday treat for him and he just throws on a record and just enjoys his day.
Yeah, hopefully the Rolling Stones brought a happy birthday because Houston Dynamo did not bring anybody a happy birthday. Are we getting straight into that, Brandon, or were you introducing a new?
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I have a different thing for us to do. It's essentially pick a number. I did not tell you any of these topics, so you're going to pick a number between 1, 2, or 3. So for right now, go ahead, pick a number 1, 2, or 3.
Let's go with number 1.
Number 1, perfect. That dives right into the dynamo here. Dorsey was to blame for the red card, meaning did Dorsey have no other option but to kind of dive into him on that? Or are you a little bit upset with him for picking up that red card? How are you feeling on that?
I'm upset with him picking the red card, but I was upset with him to even be starting to begin with. I'm kind of over this well, I'm not over the Dorsey project, but I think he does need some time to sit out, some time to rest, some time to gather his thoughts. Right now what's happening isn't working, and we talked about this last episode. Is it because Barrett's not playing? Is it because Nelson's not on the other side of the wing? Does it really make his life more difficult? Something's off, something has changed for him. So I believe he needs to sit out a little bit, get Tarbell some playing time with Escobar, and just kind of look at the game from a bird's eye view. With that being said, yeah, like look, you're a vet in this game. You know how to play it. Sometimes you just have to sit back a little bit. I understand that. I understand the scenario and why he did it, but have some faith in Clark. Because it just hurt us in the long run. I think we didn't make the appropriate adjustments once Dorsey went out, and maybe that was by default, where Ben wanted to keep pressing and act like nothing happened, and weren't down a man. But it just hurt too much, and I really wish he would have just let I forgot who it was, but the attack go and have faith in Clark. He's had a great last few games since we called him out a few weeks back. And yeah, I put the blame on Dorsey.
So I agree with you, especially in the end point there, where let him go at Clark. Because even if you give up the goal and you go down 1-0 in the 5th minute, I have nothing but faith that we can come back to equalize. But you take yourself out of the game in the 5th minute, of course we're going to give up goals late. You're running your legs absolutely like just down to the bone. So I was very disappointed of just either let Clark play out of his mind or go down 1-0 and make up for it on a sick run or a beautiful cross. You just took the game out of our hands and left us desperate to come away with a point way too early, because 85 minutes down a man, that's crazy. So I actually pitched this on our Twitter page here, and I'm going to read a couple of the responses from people. So one from Scroggins, he's saying, our good friend over at Dynamo Faithful, he said, Dorsey was in a no-win situation and was outsmarted by Farfan. So that's the guy who did it, Farfan. He was doing what any defender would have done. I want to know, why was he the last man on the line? That being said, he hasn't played up to the same level he has last season. Lots of reasons for that. And, we exactly kind of alluded to some of those. Another one, to be fair, I think a red card might help him a bit. He's not playing well. I think it's time for Smith at left back and Escobar at right back. That's our boy TSG. I kind of like the idea that he is right on that. Dorsey did need a moment here to kind of breathe and relax a little bit. There was another one here that I kind of wanted to I found earlier. Oh yeah, it was our boy Texas Longhorn. Yeah, he agrees with us. Yes, let him take Steve one-on-one. We had all game to tie it back up. I completely agree right there for that. We had all game to kind of come back for that. So everybody kind of sounded off there. It was interesting to see a mixed bag. I just think a lot of people are frustrated with Dorsey, and rightfully so. You kind of alluded to it.
And it's like it's another thing if you're playing lights out and you're having a great season, you can get away with mistakes like that. But he hasn't been the Dorsey that we remember from last year, so of course we're going to have the magnifying glass on him. It's frustrating in
100%.
the moment. It's frustrating that we lost to two of our biggest rivals, even though the game we said last year did not have that rivalry feel like it does years past against Dallas. But it sucks that the worst part was after Glenn Davis's tweet, how he felt like we should be confident going into this game. And I was just like, yeah, that's right. Glenn Davis, he feels the way we feel. And then this happens. That's the most frustrating thing, on top of the fact that you haven't been playing well. Now, looking forward, again, the being optimistic, looking at the glass half full, at least we don't have Dorsey next game so that we can put in a Smith. I would personally I want to see more of Tarbell. There's some glimpses, there's some flashes of, I don't want to say greatness, but of a really good defender. But look, maybe we keep Smith back there. He doesn't have to worry about attacking as much anymore. That he's not on the left wing, so that would be interesting to see. Put Escobar in his true position at right back. You put Smith at his true position at left back, and let's see what we have. Maybe there's something there.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some spaces that we could fill in there. I think kind of Dorsey just needs a moment to gather himself. I don't know if he's frustrated with his own play. There could be a million things. I don't know the guy, I'm only speculating. I think some time away in terms of being a suspension could definitely help him and allow for some other legs to come on and play more natural positions, as you're saying. Escobar in his right back. Maybe we have Tate Schmidt and left back, kind of, or even playing Brad Smith. Maybe even Brad Smith is the guy that we bring on as a late substitution. Just allows us to put guys in their more natural position there. So I'm all here for that. I think that's a kind of a wise plan to build that out. All right,
I
so that
think before we move on, I think I kept saying Tarbell, Tate Schmidt. Sorry, correct myself.
oh, oh I was that's me not paying enough attention as your co-host, and I should have caught that. I guess I didn't even notice that myself. All
When
right,
your
so we did
producer takes the
we
night
picked
off to go see Bad Bunny, it shows.
I know, right? Yeah, that's producer Shay is at Bad Bunny. So if anybody's wondering why you're not going to hear random just sounds suddenly played, that's why he's taking the night. All right, so you did number one there. We have number two or three. Pick a number.
3.
All right. So this one is actually what we brought up on our Twitter today here. It was leaked where my Inter Miami had the Miami Dolphins as an inspiration for their third kit. So I'm going to let you choose here. What H-Town team should the Dynamo copy, meaning Astros, etc., Rockets, Texans, or what H-Town team should the Dynamo copy, meaning like should the Texans copy the Dynamo uniforms? Should the Astros copy the Dynamo uniforms? Or which one would you want to see on the Dynamo? I'm going to let you pick.
Yeah, I would. I hinted at it. I would love to see. I feel like everyone's just adopting the H Town blue. We're trying to take it back from Tennessee, and I purposely wore this hat for that reason. I would love to see more of, and we called it Space City Blue when the Dynamo had it. I would love to see more of that and just kind of see what the feedback from the fans is. I was really surprised that we took it out of our color palettes. I always thought it was a cool little piece to have in all of our jerseys. I always think of the Amigo jersey with the little sliver of the blue. So I would love to see us taking, I guess, the old Oilers uniforms. I saw today that U of H said, "Screw you, NFL, and your cease and desist. We're still rocking with it." So why not follow the trend and join the Oilers and join what the Texans have done, and even the dash, and bring back. And I'm going to call it the H Town blue. I'm not crazy about Space City blue. I mean, that color is just so significant with the city. look at the, and I'm going to beat a dead horse at this point, but you look at the tiles around Montrose, you look at the HPD back in the day, like that color has significance in the city, and I would love to see the Dynamo rock something like that. Maybe instead of next year, instead of the purple, we do the H Town blue and see how that looks.
So I'm going to zig here and actually take an idea from Kung Fu Panda, who actually tweeted at us here, where he alluded to it. What other H Town team should adopt the Dynamo purple into their uniforms? I'm going to go with, if you look at the Astros already, I might be a bit biased by working, but we've already got the orange in that uniform. Imagine if the Astros did an inspired Dynamo kit jersey for themselves for a game. I think that would look real tight, especially them coming out there. I think that's a brilliant idea. Instead of us having to copy the Astros or something like that for the Dynamo, have these other teams piggyback off of us and kind of raise this up a little bit. I think that would be a perfect marriage. We already got the orange there with the Astros. Now let's give them some purple for a game, and they can be inspired by us. Especially with those numbers, I think it would. I think it would slap, man.
Yeah, I'd love to see the Astros pick that up. But like you said, they already have the orange and add the purple to it. And like you said, the crazy thing about that is think of the baseball diehard who never watches Dynamo. They're like, "What the hell is this? What's this purple?" And then that's kind of the gateway into becoming a soccer fan. I do want to shout out, if you get a chance, jump into our Twitter page and check out what Groovy Nubian sent us, and it was just a bunch of clips of old Houston
Oh, yeah.
uniforms: Houston Hotshots, the Houston Hurricanes, Houston Stars, Houston Summit. A lot of soccer history. I know Glenn Davis always alludes to it, so there were some cool shouts to those old uniforms from back in the day.
We even had one person who actually did a rendering. Jay Antonio, who did one. He left it still with the Oilers logo on the soccer kit, but he was like, "Yeah, I want to switch that off, obviously out with Dynamo stuff." But that looked pretty sweet too. Like it was a good ode to an old Oilers uniform, and it was all blue out. I think that one stirred a bigger pot than I thought it would when I initially tweeted that out.
If that were to happen, Bud Adams would spin in his grave. Not only does he go to the sport that I'm sure he didn't care for, but then it goes back to the city of Houston. I think whoever tweeted that, he's going to be haunted by the ghost of Bud Adams after that.
You know what? As he should, because you know what? I think that's a brilliant move. It's really our uniform. The Tennessee has no business keeping on to that, but that's another day. All right, so now we're down to your last number 2 here. This one's a little bit more of a complex kind of a question. Who is to blame for Sebas this season? Is it Pat, Ben, or Sebas himself? And what I mean by that is obviously Sebas has been riddled with injuries. It seems like he's been made of glass, but you can even go a little bit deeper. His confidence is shattered. It just doesn't seem like he's going to be that goal scorer who's putting up double digits here. So, in terms of looking at Sebas this season, who do you place most of the blame on for his overall performance? Is it Sebas himself, Ben, or Pat?
For me, it just falls down on Pat. Sebas showed us who he was, told us who he was. I still think there's a good striker there. I just don't think it's the system. I think he's frustrated. Ben, look, I haven't been the biggest Ben guy, and I always try to find a reason to jump on him. But players are bought in. There's a system, they like it, and if you're the problem, then maybe you have to look in the mirror. So I don't blame Ben. To me, it's Pat. You knew what you had. You knew you took a gamble. You didn't win that gamble. You sent him to Brazil. They didn't want him. So rather than building a team that will help with that blemish that we have on our roster, we didn't do anything. We signed Latif Blessing. We signed like everything but some more strikers. I mean, we got Siegel, but again, he's not starting caliber whatsoever. So at the end of the day, this falls on Pat. You have a plan. You should also have a plan B and a plan C in case plan A and plan B don't work. And he didn't do any of that. We're in the situation where we don't have a true striker because of the GM. And so at the end of the day, for me, it falls on Pat. You can have an attitude, you can be a diva. I'm okay with that. Again, management should know what they're getting into when you're doing that. I don't want to like turn this into a Texans podcast, but like Nick Casario and Stephon Diggs, they're having that same exact issue. Like Casario knows what he's getting into getting Stephon Diggs with the Texans. I think Pat should have done his homework and knew what we were getting with Sebas. You had him all last year. You send him off. Make a plan B, plan C, even a plan D. We just had plan A, hasn't worked, and now we're literally counting the days until the next transfer window in the summer.
So I'm gonna try to pose this because a lot of it, very much what you said, I agree. So I'm going to try to do my best here to kind of stir the pot here. If you're Pat, you had a guy that you originally signed and set a record goal scoring in one season for a first time person that you signed in terms of Sebas coming in scoring 13 goals.
Before you had a
And
coach.
then, true, exactly, before you had a coach. And then you bring in a coach, and that coach looks at that player and says he doesn't fit my system whatsoever, and then essentially runs him out. Doesn't try to adapt his style to a guy that came in scoring a ton of goals, and then has this rock star in Ache and decides, how can I build that as a 1-2 tandem? Instead, he said, either get on board or get out. So you're mentally already messing with a guy's psyche who already is a hothead. He goes to Brazil. He fails miserably. Now he comes back and he's trying to prove himself. And you have that same GM who said, no, I saw this guy score all these goals. And now I think with this addition of this team that now has an identity, I've given you time as the coach to install this. Now install him. And now, unfortunately, injury bug has come along. So that's not something that maybe you put on Sebas. Maybe his training hasn't been up to par. In the end, do I really, really agree with everything that I'm saying? No, I just think it's another side, right? Where you can kind of look at maybe if it is put to blame more for Ben because right out of the gates, he kind of kicked him out. And when he kicked him out, I'd say it destroyed his psyche because he couldn't fit into this system. Then he goes to Brazil and couldn't fit into that at all. And then he comes back and he's trying so hard to desperately prove himself that I think all he's doing is injuring himself. And he's not giving himself time to really heal because of all this pressure brought on by a coach who didn't believe you.
But didn't you feel, this is how I felt at least. I felt like Ben was saying all the right things. It felt like Ben bought in. He mentioned that as a coach you have to build around these players and you have to play to their strengths, and he was saying everything you wanted to hear as far as this relationship working between the two. I think the majority of us felt like there might be some animosity because he shipped him out. And now that he was back, it seemed like Sebas was healthy again. Ben was saying all the right things. So, like, where's the disconnect? Is Sebas a type that when he just like gets frustrated, that's it. He's done. He shuts it down. I'm not trying anymore. Seemed like he was trying, and I mentioned that last game against Austin. I loved when he came on. He was aggressive. He wanted the ball. He wanted the ball. He wasn't getting it, and again, that fell on him because he wasn't making correct runs. He was clogging lanes. He wasn't helping himself, but he was being aggressive and he didn't get the ball. Out of nowhere, we see Ben frustratingly say that he can't get healthy. And that wasn't like, and I don't want to take credit for this. This was from another podcast, and I apologize because I think like two or three of them came out today. But one of the other podcasts, I want to say it was Bayou City had mentioned that Ben sounded very frustrated when he said he can't get healthy. It wasn't like a sign of I'm frustrated at the situation. It was more of I'm frustrated at this player. And it just seems like it's crumbling from within. And again, in these type of situations, that I just blame the head coach because let's say it does crumble. I mean, I'm sorry, not the head coach, the GM. Because let's say it does crumble again. There's no plan B, plan C, plan D. Like if we lose Sebas, we lose our nine. Ben said himself, when Sebas is here, he's our guy. He's our nine. And it's kind of scary to think about. Our biggest issue is we can't score goals, and it's just getting worse. When it rains, it pours. It seems like, and it's pouring out there.
So in the end, I very much agree that the overall blame does fall on Pat because yes, you had this great goal scorer, and then you had a coach who came in and he proved his system by not only just coming in and dominating and actually winning a trophy, going to the Western Conference Finals, where all as Sebas did was score 13 goals on a really crappy team. You know what I mean? I'm really trying to just paint a different thing rather than just being like, yep, I agree. That's our show, everybody. You know what I mean? So when I'm saying that I can picture Ben as the one that we should place a little bit more blame, I have a feeling that a lot of people are probably screaming at their speakers, being like, it's Sebas. He's the one that could have controlled his attitude from the get-go. He's the one that could have fit into Ben's system. Instead, he threw a huge hissy fit, went to Brazil and thought, I'll show you, and did absolutely nothing. And now he's getting injured because he realizes this could be a make or break point for his career. This all could have been avoided if he just wasn't such a hothead. I
But
I
then
get that too.
and I agree with that too. But then, like, let's say someone who's blaming Sebas, what's the argument if Pat went out and got two other strikers, got some more scoring, or players that could score? Then
Value
you're not. Then that's
value
more on Sebas, right?
of not fitting in. I agree. I'm not saying Sebas isn't like he's the victim in all this. I could easily understand somebody that would say he's the number one culprit for those reasons that I alluded. It's his attitude right from the get go. But we did sign strikers. He did have competition in Baird, and he essentially lost his job to Corey. He also theoretically lost his job to Aliu and Thor. And then this season, he could be losing it to Aliu and Nepo Baby
Yeah, yeah.
and Kovalchuk.
I'm saying this season specifically because, again, and this is just like playing devil's advocate for anybody who is blaming Sebas. Like, for me, it falls on Pat, because if you built competition, then you could easily just blame Sebas. Like, look, you couldn't hack it. The system doesn't fit you. But for me, it's there is no competition for him. It's Nepo Baby, who it might be a good substitution piece, a late add on, but I'm not starting a game with him. I'd much rather start with Kovalchuk, false nine. I like what we see there. But again, record breaking transfer fee for this, it still leaves a bad taste in my mouth after everything.
I think in the end, I agree. Pat should have shipped him off, knowing that it was frustration. But I find this as a fascinating topic because I'm trying to put myself in position of all three of the arguments here and seeing kind of which one speaks the loudest. I understand why Pat could be the one that's holding the bag here, but it's amazing how Seba's situation is when you really kind of dive deep into this. You realize it really isn't just one guy here that's making the situation worse, and the fact that we're not really, or that we didn't go aggressively after a striker here, it's weird that we're hitching our wagon to this.
This kind of like this might be a totally different subject, but I was thinking before jumping onto this, if we didn't get that win against Minnesota United at Minnesota, where would all the fans be right now? Like, I just feel like it would be mayhem if we didn't get that win, because
Oh
it's
yeah,
been just downhill. And that was our saving grace. And that was when Ben got his extension. Everything was great. We were on cloud nine. And then it's just been doom and gloom ever since that match. And again, that match, it wasn't like we were dominating. We pulled one out of our ass in that Minnesota United game. And now I'm thinking, like, looking back, if we would have lost that match, it would have been mayhem right now. And I, I'm just kind of curious, in a different universe, like, what happens? Is Ted frustrated? Does Ben get his extension when he did? Uh, I'm just really curious on what that universe looks like. I also think it's interesting that Ted was front and center all season last season. I don't think we've seen him once since the season started. Um, is that by design, or is
that's a
that
good
just
point.
him? Like, okay, this is the ownership. Like, this is it. Y'all have met me. Y'all have seen me. I'm going to stay out of the cameras. But I would love to see Ted. I would love to have Ted answer questions right now after you've seen what Pat has built, what Ben has built. I'd love to get his feedback, but he's been missing. He's not drinking with the supporters like he did last year. And you appreciate when an owner does that, but I was getting kind of spoiled seeing him around all the time last year. So
That's a good.
again, I was just kind of curious of what that would have looked like had we lost to Minnesota United.
You're exactly right. I think all of our attitudes would have been way worse. I think these two losses just hurt because it not only comes to our in-state rival, but it's also when our in-state rival is way down. And the fact that we're losing to bottom table teams on top of all this just really, really sucks. Like if this was just, against New England or something, I think we could swallow this a bit more. It would still be a bummer, but not when it's against Frisco and Austin.
Yeah, and now we're at the bottom table. Well, compared to Austin, I think Austin overtook us in the table. So that's, yeah, and like, that's a good point. It's not the fact that we lost two in a row; it's the fact that we lost two to our biggest rivals after being on top of both of them. And so, yeah, Austin seventh, we're eighth now.
Well, before we move on, let's now dive into our crystal ball. This Saturday, we got St. Louis City coming into town. And To be honest with you, I'm a little bit impressed. I thought they would definitely have a sophomore slump coming into this season, but they haven't. They've been still a solid squad moving forward, and they're coming into our house where it's tough, as you and I are kind of alluding to in just our last couple of sentences here. What's your prediction here for this?
You have us coming in at eighth place, St. Louis coming in at ninth. Again, we're coming back home. We've talked about this before. The shell, it can be tough for some of these guys, especially when they're not acclimated to the weather. So I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I don't see us losing, but I don't see us winning, unfortunately. So I think 1-1 draw. Um, yeah, I'm looking at their last forms. They haven't been doing great. They've had quite a bit of draws recently. 2-2 against DC United, 3-1 loss to Real Salt Lake, 0-0 draw to FC Dallas, and a 1-0 win against Austin. So yeah, I just because of the lack of confidence of us, not so much in St. Louis, I have us at a 1-1 draw.
I would a draw be a loss in your eyes? You know what I mean?
It'd be a step
Like
in the
if we
right
draw,
direction.
are you upset if we come away with a 1-1 draw?
It depends. It depends how we draw. If it's one of those where they have if it's another Minnesota United where we pull one out of our ass, then yes. If it's one where there was play, there was built up, I'm okay with that. If we see Smith works on the left side, um, Escobar on the right side, I'm good with that. We can build off that foundation. But if it's one where we get a lucky goal, I'm very nervous.
I think it's going to be. I'm going to say 1-0 us. Sorry, that's me sneezing. I think that's
You're
going to
allergic
be
to
a one
bullshit,
nothing.
man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 100%. I just don't. I've given up on the idea that this is going to be the game where we open up the goal fest. I just don't think we're that team, and that's okay. Um, we haven't had many clean sheets, and we keep giving up late goals. I just hope that the Hell in the Shell is there. May the Fourth be with you. All that stuff that I'm not really in or really know about, but hopefully that's with us. And I'm going to go 1-0. I'm going to say that we just come away with a bullshit goal, but we escape with 3 points that are desperately needed.
Yeah,
But
I
if we
think
draw, I'm happy with a draw.
we talked about this last year. Who was somebody had mentioned that I forgot what podcast. It was a player. I want to say it was a former Houston player that said Houston has its home field advantage around this time of year, early months of the season and later months when it's cooler everywhere else. In the summer, it's hot everywhere in the U.S. But they were saying that this is the time when Houston really has that home field advantage because I'm pulling up St. Louis's weather right now. It's 66 right now. It's 66 degrees, high of 80. On Saturday, it's a high of 80. So yeah, they're coming to the shell. So we're gonna have that. We're gonna have that home field advantage as far as the climate. So I feel a little bit better about that 1-1 draw.
But I still see a draw as a good result. I think, as you mentioned, that is a step in the right direction. I'm just hoping we come away with 3 points. God, we need 3 points, and we will. I've got nothing but faith. All right, brother. We can move on to our next one here where we're going to go balling around the globe. We take a story from around the soccer world and we bring it to you. I'm going to go first today, and I will first start with Jamal. Have you heard of the hair dryer treatment in soccer?
As a bald man, I have not. I stay away from anything hair involving hair. I can't stomach it anymore.
So now, if I said to you, Alex Ferguson was a hair dryer, gave his players a hair dryer treatment, what do you think it now means?
Blows hot air up their ass. I don't. That's all I can
Essentially.
think of.
So the term hair dryer treatment is used in football to describe an angry verbal reprimand, usually delivered to a manager by an individual player or group of players within a dressing room. It is a simple metaphor which likens such a tirade to the loud and heated propulsion of air from a hair dryer. Generally speaking, the hair dryer treatment remains verbal in nature, but things can occasionally overheat and result in physical altercations between parties. While it's normally associated with managers who become furious with their players during or after games, players can also administer such dressing downs, and it does not have to be confined to a dressing room. So the hairdryer treatment is essentially just, them all pissed off and screaming and yelling. I've never heard of that term in soccer, but apparently it's supposed to be a big one.
Is that like a British thing that it
So
just
there we go.
translates differently?
Probably 100%. See, that's how I spoke as like a high schooler and stuff. And then I moved from overseas to America and I would use that kind of slang and I would just get killed, right? Everybody makes fun of me. And so I had to learn all the different stuff. And now when I hear things again, I have such like a blockade in my memory of like getting rid of that kind of verbiage that I just, there we go.
I
But
love
now I've
X for
learned.
that
Yes, I assume.
reason. When I'm following like all these EPL clubs and you just see people talking trash to each other, and I love when they call each other a bell end. It's so like endearing to me, dude. I'm just like a proud parent, like, oh yeah, call him bell end one more time. Um, Alrighty,
You know how many
Brandon. Well,
people used to
this
always tell so many people used to tell me like, dude, you're misspelling bro because I would be like bruv, BRUV, and people all the time would just be like, why do you misspell bra? Okay, I need to stop.
what
Where
there's
you
another
take
one that I
us.
can't think. Uh, Alrighty. Actually, I don't even know where this country is at, but interesting. Um, we are going to well, Brandon. Before we jump in the plane and head out anywhere across the globe, fun little fact: I am a history major, so I hold history near and dear to my heart. Now, there was two stories I wanted to go with. Actually, I wasn't going to go with the story. I just heard this jumping on the podcast, and I thought it should get an honorable mention. Glenn was talking about a club in Bolivia that's supposedly haunted. So if you get a chance, listen to the last episode of Soccer Matters, where Glenn talks about you can see shadows in the broadcast, and it's happened a few times. I think two or three times. So if you're into hauntings and stuff like that, maybe that's a segment for October. Definitely worth a listen. And for my actual balling around the globe, we are going to Germany. Brandon, my favorite era in history is World War II. I find it fascinating, and I love the fact that it's still so close that we know people who lived through World War II, whether it's our grandparents, great grandparents, just family members that can tell you stories about World War II. Well, Brandon, not only do our family members have stories, but also our favorite clubs. Just this week, an active bomb from World War II was found in the area around Mainz home stadium, Mainz, I'm not too sure, um, during its renovations. When I saw this tweet, they were currently working to defuse the bomb. How nuts is that?
How lucky they are that didn't just randomly go off one day and just take out section 20 during a game.
Oh my
Holy
gosh, dude.
yikes.
That is nuts. An active bomb. Well, Brandon, that got me thinking. I mean, it's crazy in itself,
Shell?
but yeah, let's say they were to dig up the shell. What's actually maybe we shouldn't go here. We might get canceled.
Something for you kind of a little on this. So apparently, whenever they build new stadiums, the person who had like a big hand in on it, or like the team president of said team of the new stadium, a lot of the times they bury time capsules. I know they did that with the Marlin Stadium. Apparently, in one of their columns, they put one in there. And then so it makes me think if that's the case, that's something we should start to dive into. What did they bury at the shell? And what would you have buried at the shell?
I, knowing Gabriel Brenner, he probably hid all his coupons, and I'm trying to think of what like a cheapskate would hide. Uh, I don't know, but I was thinking just like around that area of Houston. I mean, that at one point was it
You don't go.
Chinatown or just Asia Town? Like I'm pretty sure if you were to dig up far enough, you'd see some really cool old like stuff from the warehouses, the shipping warehouses, some cool like Asian artifacts. Um, no World War II stuff, unfortunately, but yeah, man, I just thought that was awesome. And again, it just kind of shows how old a lot of these clubs are, and why they're so important, especially in Europe, to a lot of these communities.
And also why you shouldn't be jumping up and down because you never know what's buried under that stadium. I cannot believe that, dude. That is wild. All right, man. We can move now on to the best one here. Our ball in, ball out, where we take topics. If you're ball in, you're for it. If you're ball out, you're against it. All right, your first one here, Jamal. The Dash play before or after Dynamo games. So they make sure that all of the women's games coincide with whatever the men's games are, etc. Right? And they make sure that they have those women's games that will either start before or after the men's games. You ball in, ball out for that.
I'm ball out just because that can just be a lot of soccer. I feel like if let's say you're watching both clubs, you're taking away a lot of time. You're taking 4 or 5 hours out of your evening just to be able to watch both clubs. I like having a little difference between the two clubs. Ball out.
I think right now, if you're the Dash, you got to start getting a little bit creative because you look around the rest of that league, they don't have too bad of attendance problem. We do. Maria Sanchez wants out immediately. I think just the writing on the wall for a lot of things is this doesn't look good. So I think if you can try this tactic, I know they've done that a couple of times with some Dino Dose games where they played them afterwards. This one's a little bit different. I think you can still draw a crowd depending on when you would do it. I think after hours of like Dynamo games would be an interesting aspect, or if it was before, I worry about the heat. That's the only thing that I think could be a little bit tough. But I don't know. They got to get more creative. I think this would be a fun aspect for it. So ball in. Why not? It's different.
It'd be
All
one
right.
thing
Your next one here.
if we're packing the shell for the Dynamo, but I mean that is hit or miss too. So um, I don't know, man. And speaking of that, I'm very frustrated. I feel like San Diego's going to crush it once they get their team up and running with the rumors we're hearing, and then they get Maria Sanchez. I think they're going to have a really good attendance for both squads.
I think that area is also prime for soccer too. They get great weather. They have good turnouts at the Padres games. Like it's a good sports town. They just don't have many sports teams outside of Padres, and I mean even the Chargers had a good attendance back then in the day when they were in San Diego. So the whole reason why they left wasn't because people weren't going. It was because they weren't going to get a new stadium. So then they bounced. So like I agree with you. I think no matter who they put in there though, it still would have had a good turnout. They're going to be a threat. I'm worried about that as well. I fear like, are they going to have the same immediate hot start like we've seen from Austin, as we've seen from St. Louis? Is the expansion team now kind of like you get to cut the line for your first year? Because that seems how it seems to be going in a lot of sports, NHL hockey as well. So I don't know. That's an interesting one here. All right, your next one here. Your boys, Ryan and Rob from Wrexham. They bought a club now. But I pose this: what MLS team should they put a city in? Or sorry, what city should they put an MLS team in? Or in the aspect that I kind of mentioned, I feel like Rob and Ryan should buy the Detroit team and build them up into the MLS team because that has a really good following out there in Detroit as well.
It does, but that goes against everything that like I'm personally for, which is growing the USL. And as we've seen time and time again, when the MLS comes into town, they take everyone out of business. So for that reason, I wish they would not touch Detroit or Indy or Louisville or any of these really established USL clubs. You had tweeted from the Way We Ball account, like, why don't they go into MLS? I just think it's a money thing. It's too expensive. A lot of these guys, like Ted, that buy into MLS clubs, do it for the real estate. Ted's not a soccer guy. He doesn't love Houston. He's not doing it because he cares about Houstonians. He's doing it because he's going to get a fat paycheck when the day comes when he sells this team and all of its assets, which is fine. As long as we can reap the benefits in the process, I'm okay with that. The thing, like, the thing that I thought was so brilliant with this whole Wrexham thing is that they bought that club for $2 million, just $2 million, built it up, got the stadium as well under their assets or a percentage of it, and then once they sell that, because there's going to be a day when they sell that, they're going to just walk like their kids are going to have money from this deal once it's all said and done. And I think that's the same case in Mexico. I think you can buy in really cheap as opposed to MLS. So I think that's
Yeah,
why
but
they
you don't
don't
find it
really.
that they
You
would
cut
buy
off.
a
What was that?
Mexican team. Said you don't find it kind of insulting that they would be willing to spend their team in Mexico over here and build up
No,
soccer here.
I mean
They're going
it's
to
a weird
utilize our
scenario.
fans.
It's a weird scenario because that team is owned by Eva Longoria. There's some other. There's It's a player. It's another player. So it's like a celebrity ownership thing. So I think that was just like, so I don't know if you read, Robin Ryan bought 5% of Necaxa, and that Necaxa ownership group got 5% of Wrexham. So there was a little swap that they did. I'm sure there's stuff happening under the table we don't know about. So that's why I'm not too offended by it. I'd love for those guys to invest, not so much monetarily, but with what they do with the series. I'd love for them to do that with MLS, because I mentioned MLS is just the worst at telling stories. They had Trey the Truth on Kicking It on Paramount's CBS. One mention of the Dynamo, and that mention was, oh, I think my friend Harden is involved with them. That's it. You had Dempsey, I'll call him a hometown guy, even though he's from Nacogdoches. You had Trey the Truth, whose kid is literally named Houston, and that's all he
Yeah.
could say about the Dynamo. Like the MLS, and it's not just a Dynamo problem, it's the MLS in general. They're the worst at telling stories. Robin Ryan, I want you to get involved in the US just so that you can tell stories and get casuals bought in. To answer your question, if I'm Robin Ryan, and or if I would want for them to invest in a club here in the US, I would say Vegas. Vegas has the
I think
lights.
that
They're more of a
they
feeder
have,
team. What was that?
said they have a good following too.
Yeah, but like they're hit or Vegas lights are so weird, because when I was working there, they were the feeder team to LAFC, and like their owner was nuts. Like he would drop money from a helicopter for people to just grab on the floor. Like he was the epitome of
Yep.
Vegas. I would love to see them do something there, because I think the since LA kind of took over operations, I think that that has kind of declined. So while I wouldn't want them to take over the lights, I think that's inevitable. I think they're going to eventually not be a thing in the near future. So I would love to see them do something there. Hollywood doing something in Vegas kind of makes sense. If not, um, I don't know, maybe bring up a club that has died out. Like I'm thinking Reno. Reno had a good following, and they eventually went out of commission. I'm trying to think of like an MLS team. I think MLS Chivas USA is the only one I could think of, but they're getting San Diego. I don't know, but I would say
I
Vegas. Final answer.
so couple of things here. Hell yes, I want my owner from a helicopter throwing money. Yeah, dude, I definitely want that. Ball in every day for that. I will follow that man to the sun. The other thing too is I was down for the Wrexham story. I thought it was great, and it works out. Now I'm having a little bit of problem where they want all of these American eyeballs for their product, but they're not really going to give anything to our product. That's where I'm going to start to say, no, I have a problem for that. Get out of here. And now you're going to go over to one of our other rival divisions or clubs, or sorry, leagues as well, and start to invest in there where they can invest into you. Like, no, I'm not. I'm starting to become more against these guys and the fact that it's like you're just using us while just not platforming anything that we do here. In an essence, you brought one exhibition game and didn't use it against like another MLS squad or anything like that. So I have a bit of a problem with that. If they come over here and invest in MLS, I'm here for that. I don't give a shit how much it costs for them. They've got the money to do this. And especially if they're going to keep demanding that we pay attention to their product, no, you got to do something for us then.
But I feel like
But if
what
they
they're
didn't,
doing doesn't really affect the MLS viewer or like the MLS watcher. They're getting the casuals, like the people who
well,
don't care.
they know that. They know
But
Wrexham before they know the MLS teams. So that's ruining it.
yeah, but shouldn't that be like the entryway into supporting your local club? Like, oh, like okay, I like soccer now. Oh man, I have a team here in Houston. Oh, maybe I should check them out too.
No, they like Deadpool, and so they're going to watch what he's doing over there. So if Deadpool did something over here in a one in a country where they have MLS teams in Canada, so he could do something up there too. Rob from Philly could do something in Philly, like or around Pennsylvania. Open up Pittsburgh for a team. Like there's other things that you can do here where you're adding in money, and then those viewers are going to tune in and watch here. Like I get the Wrexham thing can bring the casual fan under the umbrella, but they could have done it over here the same way. Like I know it costs a little bit more money, but there's a bigger cash grab to be had at the end of MLS Rainbow, in my opinion.
I agree with that, but I don't think that responsibility falls on them. I think that's more so MLS. MLS needs to be like, hey, you're doing something, it's working. Let's work together.
I agree with that too, but that now they're investing in other places. That's where I'm starting to have a problem. Their initial one was great. It changed the game on what you can do for in soccer. But now getting into bed with Liga MX, that's where I'm like, if you're not going to start to do stuff for us, then I'm having a problem with what you're doing with your platform. Because now it's just a cash grab and you're telling us to buy in.
But do you feel like it's uh, such a rival soccer league? Because I feel
I
like we're
am
doing
now.
so much with them. Like I'm just saying Liga MX. Like I feel like we're in bed with these guys more than we are against them.
Doesn't matter. I mean, Texas A&M's in the SEC and Texas Tech's in the Big 12. I still hate their guts. So, like, they're still a rival to me. Like, I think Liga MX, if you're taking away eyeballs and viewerships and money away from what could be going to our game, you're a rival to me. So goodbye to them. All right, last one. This one is absolutely stupid here for you, but this actually ties into the fact that you're going to Hawaii here, my man. Ball in, ball out. Flip flops or slides. You ball in or ball out for them.
Ball in or ball out on both.
Flip flops or slides. I'm gonna just put them under one umbrella.
Oh, ball out. I don't ever really wear them, and I feel like even in Hawaii, I'm just going to be barefoot. I'm ball out. It's another responsibility. They're not the most comfortable. Ball out.
One, you're gonna literally not wear flip flops in Hawaii. You're gonna look ridiculous, dude. That you got to have flip flops in
I'm
Hawaii.
going shoeless. I'm staying
As
in the
somebody,
resort, baby.
yeah, but you got to like walk through the hotel like lobby and stuff like that, or like go out to some like luau. You need flip flops. As somebody that grew up in Southeast Asia where it's super tropical and everybody there wears like flip flops, I don't wear them now as much unless I'm taking out the dog because like everybody here in Texas is so weird about it. Otherwise, dude, flip flops are great. Not comfortable. You are so wrong, dude. There's nothing better than just like kicking those bad boys off no matter where you are and walking around in them. They become your foot. I used to love flip flops, bro.
Okay, so I like the slides that you slide in, but I hate the thongs.
Oh,
Those I
give me the thong.
can't do it. I'm out. Ball out.
Slides is for lazy people. The thongs, that's a person who's confident.
When you're out in the water, that's when it's time to be lazy. It's margarita o'clock.
Nah, you're doing island things all wrong. I'll help you. They're gonna throw rocks at you, bro.
I'll take that. Throwing coconuts.
Hey, you'll see, man. Don't go surfing in the wrong places.
Well, Brandon, this week's episode, we needed something to smile about because the Dynamo sure as hell didn't give it to us. We went from celebrating a birthday all the way to talking about World War II, all the way to going talking about flip flops or
So
sandals. We're all over the place when we don't have a producer to keep us in check. But we learned the hard way that Bad Bunny is more important than the show.
I
So
love Bad
yeah,
Bunny. I would totally do that show.
I would have too, to be honest with you. But with that being said, we'll wrap it up for this week. Next time you see me, I'll be sun kissed, hopefully, and we'll be celebrating 3 points, hopefully. So, with that being said, happy birthday, Glenn Davis. I'm Jamal.
And I'm Brandon, and this is the way we ball.